Okay, so this is a paper published in 2009 that disproves the Stewart approach. It's an experimental disproving of the theory, and I'm going to cover this paper in the highlighted text below. But the paper is titled A Critique of Stewart's Approach, the Chemical Mechanism of Dilutional Acidosis, published in Intensive Care Med. So anyone can look this paper up if they would like. So in the classical dilution concept, metabolic acidosis after resuscitation with large volumes is attributed to the dilution of serum bicarbonate. However, Stewart's approach rejects the explanation and offers an alternative one that is based on a decrease in the strong ion difference. This mechanistic explanation is questionable for principal chemical reactions. The object of this study is to clarify the chemical mechanism of dilutional acidosis through experimental data and simulations of various dilutional experiments, as well as theoretical and chemical considerations were used. The results were the key to understanding the mechanism of dilutional acidosis lies in the open CO2 bicarbonate buffer system, where the buffer base, bicarbonate, is diluted, whereas the buffer acid is not diluted. Neither the principle of electroneutrality, nor a change in strong ion difference, nor increased water dissociation plays a mechanistic role in this dilutional acidosis. Stewart's approach is valid at the mathematical level, but does not provide any mechanistic insights. So I'm going to go through how these dilutional studies prove the Stewart model incorrect, that strong ion difference is not causing the increase in protons. We'll cover in detail what actually is doing that. And that this approach is incorrect. And the dissociation of water is not what is leading to an increase in protons due to the strong ion difference. So objections have already been raised on the mechanistic explanations of the Stewart approach. The physicochemical validity of its mechanistic explanations has to be proven experimentally. This will be done in the present study on the basis of the mechanistic analysis of dilutional acidosis. Let's go in here. The context of dilutional acidosis, Stewart's approach would argue that the proposed bicarb dilution cannot cause the observed metabolic acidosis because bicarb is a dependent variable. Moreover, it was argued that blood acids and bases are diluted equally, hence dilution does not preferentially affect bicarbonate. So therefore, from the Stewart perspective, an alternative explanation for dilutional acidosis needs to be developed. His main explanation is based on the strong ions and the maintenance of electroneutrality. It was believed that positive or negative charges influence the dissociation of water. In the context of dilutional acidosis, this means dilution of plasma by water or another solution with a strong ion difference of 0 decreases the strong ion difference, diminishes the surplus of positive charges. However, the decrease in strong ion dissociation demands compensation by a positive charge. This is suggested by increased water dissociation with the generation of positively charged protons. This newly generated proton then causes acidification of the solution, according to Stewart's theory. The objective of this study was to clarify the chemical mechanism of dilutional acidosis. Particularly, we wanted to determine whether the strong ion difference-induced increase in water dissociation causes dilutional acidosis and whether bicarb should be regarded as a dependent or independent variable. Finally, this analysis will be used to clarify several misconceptions arising around Stewart's acid-based approach. The study is based on simulations of dilutional experiments, theoretical considerations, and in vitro experiments. So they did a bunch of different dilutional experiments using saline, some using a closed system, others an open system in regards to, so basically, reactions could occur in regards to CO2. And they also, all the solutions were constructed and pH calculations were performed with standard methods of chemistry using chemical equilibrium equations, mass and charge balances, and then also in vitro experiments were performed for the simulations, dilutional simulations of 2 through 5. So let's just basically get to the punchline here. We found that the key to understanding dilutional acidosis lies in the open CO2 bicarb buffer system, where the buffer base is diluted, whereas the buffer acid is not diluted, PCO2. The categorization independent and independent the categorization in dependent and independent variables depend on the system, and bicarbonate can be regarded as an independent parameter. Stewart's strong ion approach does not provide mechanistic insights into dilutional acidosis. I'm going to cover a few other things here, but this study, these dilutional studies and these in vitro experiments are proving that bicarb actually should be regarded as an independent variable. Remember, Stewart said it is a dependent variable. So these experimental studies prove that that is incorrect, that bicarbonate is an independent variable. And then I'm going to show you basically how the other aspects of Stewart's theory is incorrect. If we now regard living humans, we also have to consider organ functions as secondary processes, such as renal or respiratory compensatory mechanisms. Can we really expect Stewart's approach, which is based on a mathematical model of a physicochemical system, to clarify the mechanisms of dilutional acidosis in vivo? Coming back to Stewart's approach in the physicochemical level of dilutional acidosis, we have to identify all blood plasma components participating in acid-base equilibrium and linking them by chemical equations and equilibrium constants. The relevant acid-base components in human plasma, dissociation equilibria, and equilibrium constants are well known and characterized, which enables theoretical simulations of the dilutional processes. In vivo or in vitro dilutional experiments are not absolutely necessary to clarify the underlying chemical mechanisms. Nevertheless, data from in vitro experiments for some simulations are provided to support the theoretical data. In all simulations, alkaline solutions were diluted by a neutral, more acidic solution. Except in simulation 1, all solutions were buffered. Simulations 2, 3, and 5 contained an open CO2 bicarb buffer system, whereas a closed buffer system was used in simulation 4. Furthermore, in all experiments, it could be clearly shown that the change in strong ion difference is only an algebraic necessity, or a marker of dilution, but has not an active or causative role in the mechanism of dilutional acidosis. Again, disproving now that the strong ion difference is not causing acidosis. These experimental studies are disproving now, not just that bicarb is a dependent variable, which these studies proved it was independent. It's also proving that the strong ion difference is not what's the actual causative mechanism of the acidosis, disproving another part of Stewart's theory. For example, in dilutional acidosis, a decrease in strong ion difference, or hyponatremic acidosis, can be found. However, this does not mean that low serum sodium concentration is the cause of the acidosis. Analogously, a hyperchloremic acidosis can have several causes, but is not caused by chloride. Chloride is not acidic. The causes and the compensation mechanisms of acid-base disorders can only be explained by the clinical situation and pathophysiological considerations, not by a mathematic formula. Summary and conclusions. The chemical mechanism of dilutional acidosis when focusing on blood plasma is the dilution of an open CO2 bicarb buffer system where the buffer base bicarb is diluted, but not the buffer acid, CO2. This unbalanced buffer dilution results in acidosis. A change in strong ion difference, which is a mathematical construct, does not cause dilutional acidosis, but is merely a marker for the dilutional process. Furthermore, we demonstrated that increased water dissociation is not the chemical mechanism of dilutional acidosis, and Stewart's approach does not provide any mechanistic insights into acid-base disorders. The distinction of independent variables and dependent variables by Stewart is arbitrary and depends on the actual regarded system. So, however, Stewart's approach is disqualified by the incorrect causal and mechanistic explanations derived from these calculations. They disqualified the Stewart approach in these experiments. They may appear to be attractive explanations because of their simple mechanistic mathematical principles, but one must not trade accuracy for simplicity. Consequently, following these principles very quickly leads to an acid-base understanding and terminology that is not concordant with current models in chemistry, and that might also be beyond the interpretation Stewart originally would have appreciated. It is important that quantitative/mathematical correlations must not be directly transformed to real mechanistic processes. Therefore, in our opinion, the Stewart approach leads us to a more differentiated view on the metabolic part of acid-base disorders and allows detailed quantifications that may be helpful in clinical practice, but its mechanistic interpretations must be rejected. This paper clearly rejects the fact that the strong ion difference does not cause acidosis, no dissociation of water is leading to extra protons, and that bicarbonate is not a dependent variable, it is an independent variable. So I think it is very clear from these experiments, both the dilutional experiments, both the in vitro experiments, that Stewart approach is not explaining actually what is happening in regards to acid-base balance in the body.